going to call this special meeting of the Region 12 Board of Education to order. It is quarter to 10. Sorry for the late hour, but that's what it is. All right, I will take attendance. Valerie?
I'm still here.
Tony? Alan?
Yes.
Greg? Here. Michelle?
Here.
Emily?
Here.
I'm here. Kelly?
Here.
Jennifer?
Here.
Michael?
Here.
Susan?
Here.
And Peter? Here. All right. First item on the agenda, I will read. To consider and act upon a resolution approving the submission to the voters of the district of a resolution with respect to an appropriation and borrowing authorization for costs related to the design, construction, furnishing, and equipping of a new approximately 277 to 300 student capacity consolidated elementary school to be located at the Chippewa Valley campus in the town of Washington, and costs related to the design, construction, and installation of various improvements and renovations to Chippewa Valley Middle High School, semicolon, establishing the particulars of a district referendum with respect to such appropriation and borrowing authorization, authorizing the preparation of explanatory materials with respect to such referendum, authorizing the application for and acceptance of grants in aid of the project, and other matters related thereto.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Michelle? I didn't move and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I think this is built by Jim.
This is the resolution from bond council, correct? Yes, this is the resolution.
All right, hold on. I just want to make, there's been a motion. I'm sorry, hold on. With us tonight is, there's a motion made and seconded. Mr. Glenn Rebecki, attorney, bond counsel, is with us. Sir, we have this resolution. Does that need to be moved and seconded and approved by the voter? How does that work?
Well, you're going to act. There's a couple different resolutions that are involved here. One has to do with the actual appropriation and authorization, which is if you want to say the resolution body itself. You also have resolutions where you would send it to a referendum. You have resolutions that would set the referendum date itself.
So are they all contained in this document?
They're contained in the document, but you're going as you move along. You're acting separately, if you will, on those items.
All right, so if the board votes on the motion now, if that motion passes, can it then move to vote on the resolution specific? Or in other words, do we need to vote on whatever's been moved? This is what's been moved.
Okay, that's the agenda item. You don't move on the agenda item, you move on this over here. All right.
And
So
we're not
with-
setting the date.
So with that
If
said,
you don't want to, you do not. I should just point out, as far as what you can do here is you can approve the resolution, that's the appropriation and bond authorization. You may or you may not have to set the referendum date itself. You do not have to do the two together.
all right, so then with regard to item 2 on the agenda, that, according to you, does not need to be voted on. That's just an agenda item. What needs to be voted on is what you're saying is the resolution,
Exactly.
which contains 7 numbered paragraphs.
Jake, that one.
Is that item 2?
It's item 2.
Item 2,
Yes.
right.
I didn't get it.
It's online.
Okay. Okay.
That contains 7.
Isn't it in your pile?
Pile is
You got a
full.
pile of stuff in front of you? I did, but it wasn't in that pile. Someone may have taken it. I mean, I got here right at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay.
Hold on. Before we can move on, everybody's got to have it in front of them.
Want me to make copies?
The language that we just used as a motion has to be retracted as a motion.
Yes. Excuse me, we got it one at a time, please. The suggestion from council is to, I think what you're saying is to withdraw the motion to approve this agenda item and strictly move to the resolution. Is that right?
Well, you're not withdrawing the agenda item. You're not taking
I'm withdrawing the motion to
Okay,
approve the
yes,
agenda.
then yes, I'm sorry.
All right,
My apologies.
Valerie, do you withdraw your motion?
I don't know. I don't know what, I mean, this is an agenda item, this looks like a motion to me. I'm not getting this, and this is not on the agenda. The resolutions, how do they relate?
It is. It says to consider and act upon a resolution.
That's the resolution.
Well, this is.
Aren't we
worded
doing
weird.
that in the motion? We're saying yes to this, which includes this.
The item that's on the agenda list is really nothing more than saying this is the actions that you have noticed the community of what you would be acting on. When you go to the resolution that's in your left hand,
Yep.
that is the resolution that the agenda item references that
Got
you're
it.
going to be taking action on.
Okay, I remove my motion. I remove my second.
All right. So with that said, I don't suppose you're going to make the motion. I'm not asking you to do that. Is somebody prepared to make a motion and read this resolution?
Well, I read it last time.
Are you Yes, that's what we're being told. Are you prepared to do it again, Peter?
If you wish,
Are you making a motion?
I will make the motion.
What is your motion?
Resolved that the Board of Education adopts the following resolution to be submitted for approval by a referendum vote of the voters of the district. Resolved, the Board of Education adopts the following resolution to be submitted for approval by a referendum vote of the voters of the district. Resolution appropriating $40,879,191 for costs, design, construction, furnishing, and equipping of a new consolidated elementary school to be located on the Chappaqua Valley campus in the town of Washington. Estimated cost, $32,597,202. Cost of design, construction, and installation of various improvements and renovations to the Chappaqua Valley Middle High School. Estimated cost, $8,281,989. And authorizing the issue of bonds and temporary notes to finance the portions of said appropriations as it is not defrayed from grants. 1, resolve the Regional School District Number 12 of the State of Connecticut appropriate $40,877,191 for 1, costs related to design, construction, furnishing, and equipping of a new approximately 277 to 300 student capacity consolidated elementary school to be located on the Chappaqua Valley campus in the town of Washington to serve the entire pre-kindergarten through grade 5 population of the district. Site improvements, related work and improvements, and costs related to the financing of the project. Estimated cost, $32,597,202. And a 2, costs related to the design, construction, and installation of various improvements and renovations to the Chappaqua Valley Middle High School as recommended by the Facilities Committees and approved by the Board at its meeting December 2nd, 2013. Estimated cost, $8,281,989. The appropriation may be spent for design and construction costs, survey, testing and permitting costs, furnishings, fixtures, equipment, materials, technology, infrastructure, and equipment, site improvements, architectural fees, architect fees, engineering fees, construction, management costs, and fees, consulting fees, legal fees, net interest on borrowing, other financing costs, and other expenses related to the project and its finance. Board of Education or any building committee delegated all or any portion of such responsibility by the Board of Education shall be authorized to determine the scope and particulars of the project, may reduce or modify the scope of the project as desirable, and the entire appropriation. But as to each portion of the project, not an amount in excess of the estimated cost of each such portion of the project to be spent on the project as so reduced or modified. No expenditure shall be made pursuant to this appropriation for the elementary school until an amendment to the plan of Regional School District Number 12 allowing for a consolidated elementary school to be located on the Chappaqua Valley campus in the town of Washington to serve the entire pre-kindergarten through grade 5 population of the district has been approved. 2, that the district issue its bonds and temporary notes in an amount not to exceed $40,877,191 to finance the appropriation for the project. The amount of the bonds or notes authorized shall be reduced by the amount of grants received by the district for the project. The bonds and temporary notes shall be issued pursuant to Section 10-56 of the General Statutes of Connecticut, Revision 1958 as amended, and any other enabling acts. The bonds and notes shall be general obligations of the district and its member towns, secured by the irrevocable pledge of the full faith and credit of the district and its member towns. A law firm of Day Pitney LLP is designated as bond counsel to approve the legality of the bonds and notes. The chairman and the treasurer or such officer or body to whom the Board of Education delegates the authority to make such determinations are authorized to determine the amounts, dates, interest rates, maturities, redemption, provisions, form, and other details of the bonds and notes. Designate one or more banks or trust companies to be certifying bank, registrar, transfer agent, and paying agent for the bonds or notes. To provide for keeping a record of the bonds or notes. To designate a financial advisor to the district in connection with the sale of the bonds or notes. To sell the bonds or notes in public or private sale. To deliver the bonds or notes, and to perform all other acts which are necessary or appropriate to issue the bonds or notes. 3, that the district hereby declares sufficient intent on the federal income tax regulations, section 1.150-2, that project costs may be paid from temporary advances of available funds, and that, except to the extent reimbursed through grant monies, the district responsibly expects to reimburse any such advances from the proceeds of borrowings in an aggregate principal amount not in excess of the amount of borrowing authorized above for the project. The chairman and treasurer or such officer or body to whom the Board of Education delegates such authority are authorized to amend such declaration of official intent as they deem necessary or advisable, and to bind the district pursuant to such representations and covenants as they deem necessary or advisable in order to maintain the continued exemption from federal income taxation of interest on the bonds or notes authorized by this resolution, if on a tax-exempt basis, including covenants to pay rebates on investment earnings in the United States in future years. 4, that the chairman and the treasurer or such officer or body to whom the board delegates such authority are authorized to make representations and enter into written agreements for the benefit of holders of the bonds or notes to provide secondary market disclosure information, which agreements may include such terms as they deem advisable or appropriate in order to comply with applicable laws or rules pertaining to the sale or purchase of such bonds or notes. 5, the Board of Education is authorized to approve the entering into of contracts for the project, and the Board of Education or such officer or body to whom the board delegates such authority is authorized to approve the expenditure of said appropriation, such other matters as it deems desirable or necessary to complete the project. 6, that the appropriation made hereby shall not be effective until the district has received any necessary report approving said project pursuant to Section 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes. 7, that the appropriation authorization, bonds, and temporary notes shall be subject to approval by referendum vote to be held in the towns of Bridgewater, Roxbury, and Washington, being all of the towns comprising the said district.
Second.
Point of inquiry.
Hold on, please. Peter, thank you for reading that. It's been moved and seconded. Go ahead.
Point of inquiry. Peter, did you mean to say in page 3, line 3, the last word of that line, page 3, paragraph 3, line 3,
Right.
you said responsibly. Did you mean to say reasonably?
Paragraph 3, line 3.
Line 3.
last word.
The district reasonably, you mean,
Yes,
expects, did I not say that?
you said responsibly, that's okay. I just want to make sure if you meant to say reasonably.
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
But an excellent job, nevertheless.
Is there any other comment? Susan?
Well, while we're pointing out glaring mistakes, the numbers don't match the words when it comes to 40,870.
What paragraph are you in, Susan? I'm sorry.
Well, this is on numbers 1 and numbers 1 and 2. The numbers in the words don't match. 40,877,000, and the number is 879,000. That's an error in both places.
All right, reread it. All right, let me turn,
Would the mover accept a friendly amendment to change the word, the written word 7 in line 2 of paragraph number 1 to 9?
And in line 2 of paragraph number 2.
Yes.
you accept the friendly amendment, Peter?
Yes, I do.
I think it would be safer if there was a motion to amend. Greg, would you do that?
Move that we amend the resolution in line, page 1, paragraph number 1, second line from 77 to 79, and the same change in paragraph 2 on page 3, second line from 77 to 79.
Second.
All right, there's a motion to amend. There's no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right.
Now, another question.
So now it's amended, so the motion is on the table. Greg?
What is the purpose of this? Is this to replace the resolution that was considered for tonight? And we're having another public hearing on this? Or I don't quite just follow this.
Mr. Reddick?
This is the actual resolution that puts the appropriation and the bond authorization in place. What you acted on before was pushing the ball forward to in essence, to this point.
All right, let me ask this question now. I'd like to ask ask Gary Brochu. If we adopt this resolution tonight, I don't see anything in this resolution about scheduling it for a referendum. So if we adopt this tonight, are we still allowed to expend funds under state election enforcement rules with respect to this referendum, or are we barred by adopting this referendum, or this resolution?
In terms of the expenditure of public funds, to advocate for a position one way or the other, again, it has to be advocated. Neutral language is still allowed. That only occurs once the referendum question is pending, which means all the legal requirements necessary for the question have to be accomplished. If you don't schedule a date, it's not pending. I think you probably
I agree with that.
Anyone else? Valerie?
First off, I'm so glad Susan was paying attention. That was a very good catch, because we have to be very careful with every detail now. So thank you for that. And secondly, I just want to make sure that when this does go to the voters, how is it going to be worded? It is not going to be worded like this, correct?
What will happen when it goes to a referendum is this resolution will be in place and available to the voters. What the voters are going to see on the day of the referendum will be, in essence, a question, which will, in essence, boil it down to a, shall the district appropriate 40 million, we'll say, for the purpose of building the pre-K through 5 school and for the costs of the renovations for the Shepog Valley Middle High School, and authorize the bonds to finance said appropriation.
Is that in a sense the bold language here? We can use that?
That's what that's what the resolution that you will act on to set a referendum will have in it, yes.
Right, so this in a sense can be our ballot language.
With some tweaking, yes.
So I assume it would say something like, as set forth in the resolution approved by the Board of Education next date or whatever.
It'll say that that's available at the town clerk's offices, it'll be available at the district office, that belong to Mr. Dagley.
That you made us read. Is there anything else? Anthony? Tony, I'm sorry?
Where do we answer the question about the amendment to the plan?
That's the next item on the agenda.
So it's not part of this one.
No.
Correct. Susan?
I do have a concern about lumping these two projects together and the monies for the two projects together, and especially with the verbiage of the the board can reduce or modify amounts for a particular project. So let me pose this, because I heard some trace of it, the concerns tonight. If the cost for one, say this pre-K to 5 building were to be more, you run into unexpected costs, would this wording allow for the decrease of money to be spent for Chippewa and the allotment of that money to be applied to the pre-K to 5 school? Should that money go?
It was meant to keep the two projects separate, because they're in essence two projects that are, one's construction, one's the renovation. So it was meant to keep those apart.
Well, I'm not reading that, so I don't know that you answered, my question is, with the wording as it is, I don't read it as two separate projects. I'm just specifically asking if the cost of the pre-K to 5 goes over the $32,597, could money be taken out of the $8.2 million for Chippewa and still be in compliance with the language of this?
I think upon what you're saying, I think that, yes. I think on first blush, I think that reading it just on the bare bone words, I think, yes, you could between the two projects. I would suggest if you wanted to keep those separate, looking at where the language is to modify or whatever, we change it from the project to each project or within each project, some language of that nature.
I think that language is always in it. If you could both check this, because you're both coming out from different sides. The very bottom of the first page, the sentence that starts the Board of Education, but further to the end, the second line from the bottom, not an amount in excess of the estimated cost of each such portion of the project may be spent on the project as so reduced or modified. Is that the protection there?
Yes, I'm sorry, going to say that, I think is, yes.
So you can't move money from what the,
You're allowed to reduce or modify the scope of the project as desirable, entire appropriation, but as to each portion of the project, not an amount in excess of the estimated cost of such portion of the project.
Right, so things within, like, say, like in the renovation project, you've got a bunch of different line items that might be for tiles.
You can't kill one in order to put more money in the elementary school, is the
Correct.
question, and that I think is a
And I think
technical.
that line is right. You can move within or shrink one of them if you wanted to. You can't kind of borrow from Peter to pay Paul.
But wouldn't it depend on what your definition of portion of the project is?
Well, it says each such, so I think
Each project has different portions to it.
well, I think within each project, you can move things, like let's say on the pre-construction, they say that they find more in the ground on the borings, and you may want to take maybe less carpeting to accomplish the goal, or maybe shrink the cost of the carpet down. That you can do, because that's within that bigger umbrella. You can't take from the, if you will, from the renovation of this school building to say, gee, we want to add better lights to the new pre-K building. That you can't achieve.
Valerie?
I think it's important for us, changing the subject slightly, that we had a public hearing, and in all the conversation on many different elements of our presentation, I don't think I heard anyone really be concerned about the fact that we're having one question for two projects. A lot of people beforehand seemed to be concerned that we should have a separate question for the Chippewa project instead of the pre-K 5. And I didn't hear that tonight. So I definitely support this motion, and I think we're following the interests of our taxpayers.
Anyone else?
Nobody else heard anybody? Jesus, did they?
Michael?
Just to check my logic here, because I'm an English teacher, not a math teacher, but I was just looking at the numbers again, and approximately $32 million for the new elementary school, correct? And that school is to house 277 students
300 capacity.
to 300. So if we do the math, that works out to about $116,000 per student that we're spending for this new building. Just kind of an interesting way to present the numbers in a different way. And I think, I understand we're not going to change the wording dramatically to go with that, but I think that's a very real number that we need to think long and hard about. $116,000 a student sounds like a lot of money to me.
Multiple children.
Well, and until you divide it by the number of years, the school's useful life of 50 years, and then it doesn't quite look like such a vexing number. Yeah, it's $116,000 a student if you're going to build it for 1 year and then take it down. But that's not what we're doing, so I don't think it's quite as vexing.
Is there anyone else?
Yeah, let's do the same.
All right, there's a motion on the floor to approve the resolution as amended to change the wording, the words 77,000 to 79,000 in 2 places, and to make clear that in paragraph 3, at the end of line 3, the word was reasonably. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. You've got people all around you. All those opposed, raise your hand. Any abstentions, raise your hand. What's the count?
8 in favor, 4 opposed.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 3. Discussion and possible action to set a date and question for a referendum to amend the regionalization plan for regional district number 12 and any other matters related thereto. You heard what I assume you heard what I had to say regarding this issue. You'll recall that at our February 24th meeting, we passed language which deleted certain language about the K-5 schools in each of the towns, period. And there was a request, a motion to amend that to add the words "and construct a consolidated school." That was defeated. So the language that was brought forward today to the public hearing was the language that was approved at the meeting. Our attorney, Mr. Gary Brochu, is with us tonight. Gary, can you address the board as to any concerns that you have with regard to this?
First of all, as just stated by the chair, you currently have a question that you previously approved that was presented at the town hearing tonight. And that question is the deletion of references on page 2 and 5 of the regional plan, reference full-time elementary schools. So that is your question. And if you were to go forward and simply keep that as your question and set a date, you can set the referendum date. There's no need for an additional public meeting because the question is already that you approved has been discussed at the public hearing. However, and this was referenced in the communication with the board and last week and confirmed with the Department of Education, so that at least they see it the same way, that any revision of that question would necessitate another public meeting with a reported question and people have the ability to respond. In the thinking behind simply doing the deletion is to give the Board of Education having a regional plan that doesn't unduly constrict you in terms of doing, say a K2 school someone mentioned versus 3, 5, and 7. Because currently right now you are restricted to K5 schools, 1 in each of the 3 towns. That's your reality. On the other hand though, in taking another look and also confirming the Department of Education, in looking at the Supreme Court, they say they're going to do this on a case-by-case basis. And the concern that I expressed earlier with the chair, and I'll share with you, is that if you don't put in some specification of what you're putting in place, the concern is that you have a challenge, and the claim would be the same thing that was claimed in 2009, which is your regional plan doesn't allow for the action taken just a moment ago for the bonding, for the construction of that school. The reality is, I don't know what the answer is. No one knows what the answer is until the Supreme Court actually makes a decision. Certainly, the statute has been interpreted differently. I mean, the Superior Court was reversed in 2009. So that would be the concern. The concern is if you don't put in, for example, a consolidated K-5 elementary school, for example, that you could be subject to a challenge. We don't know what the outcome will be on that challenge, but it could very well be that your regional plan, as amended, doesn't provide for the authority or the ability to do that. I don't know what the answer is. The more cautious way to approach it would be to designate what it is that you're looking to do. Now, keeping in mind, if you suppose you amend your plan and you put in a consolidated elementary school, and you later say, well, we can't do that, we can't get our bond passed, we need to do something else. You've got to amend that plan again. You are confined by your plan. And so there is a bit of a chicken and egg here, because you modify your plan to do something, but you do that without knowing whether or not you'll be able to do it.
Do you have any advice for the board, Gary?
My advice would be, again, in terms of caution, would be to both delete the language and add some affirmative language. So delete the references to the K-5.
Which we've already done.
Which you've done. And I'm only saying that because that's my understanding of what you want to do. You obviously can do whatever you like. But if you want to do that, then add affirmative language to replace that, particularly the reference on page 2, where if you look at page 2 on the plan, bullets, middle school, high school, you would then replace it with a bullet that says, for example, consolidated K-5 schools.
Do we have the plan?
Hold on, please, Greg.
I've got two questions.
Please, Ray.
I think the first question is, do I understand you that what you're saying is that someone might challenge it, saying that you can't have a K-5 school in your district because you don't make provision of where to put it? I don't
No,
understand
I'm
what
saying
you're
that
saying.
if you were simply to amend the plan to remove references to elementary grades K-5 to remain in hometown schools, and not replace it with anything, and then you later pass a bond, because obviously you have to take action.
Right.
In fact, so you then pass a bond, which is proposed, to construct the school. Previously, when you tried to go about doing this as a district, you had a challenge. And the issue is that the Supreme Court said in its decision, its recent called decision, that they'd look at it a case-by-case basis. Now, they haven't given us specific indication of what's fundamental and what's incidental, but they could go back and argue, particularly that they used the standard of an informed voter at the time of the inception of the original plan. They certainly could go back, and I could see reasoning, a decision coming out where they would say, you didn't amend the plan so as to justify this change.
Is to justify what change?
The change, because you're
Building a consolidated school.
to build a consolidated elementary school. The reality is, I don't know what they're going to do.
All right, so where is your elementary school if that's the case? What do? Shut down the system? I don't quite understand the ramification of it. What would happen?
Well-
Because we now no longer have a provision to have them in the towns.
Right, well, what would happen specifically is your ability to construct a school would potentially be at risk like it was in
So you would
2009.
have de facto the same region you have now.
Yes.
because You can't build anything new.
Yes.
All right, now the next question, my second question then is, should we not adopt exactly parallel language to what's in the bonding referendum on this?
Well, first of all, you don't need to get nearly that specific. You don't need to put in this giant resolution.
No, I'm asking for the
issue is-
a reference to the school, in this, it talks about building
On the Chicago campus?
a new consolidated elementary school to be located on the Chippewa Valley campus in the town of Washington.
You can put Chicago on campus if you want. Keep in mind, you'll be confined now to the Chicago campus. Putting Washington would be more than specific enough, because there's no more greater specificity indicated in the regional plan. But you could put it located simply within the district. You're not necessarily required within the plan. For example, if you look prior, it talked about a middle school to be housed initially at the Washington High School facility, and it talked about the construction of a high school within the district. That's all it said. When when you look at the original plan, central location within the district. So there's no requirement it be as specific as Chicago campus or whatever, but there's nothing prohibiting you from doing that. The only point that the board needs to be aware of is whatever language you put in as your regional plan, that becomes your constitution becomes your controlling document.
If I may, just Gary, just so we're clear, you prepared a proposed resolution, a proposed motion with regard to all this?
Yeah, I said it's.
Yeah, and I believe we all have it in front of us. So this is with Mr. Bush.
Could you read it again for me? Sorry.
Well, it's 3 paragraphs.
Oh, okay.
If somebody wants to make a motion, they're going to have to read it. Hold on.
Wait a minute, I didn't.
Yes. Or did he prepare this? Or did we prepare this, Debbie? I thought he did. You sent us this,
No, what I sent you today
was this middle,
the middle, okay, you put the rest of it.
we put the beginning and the
Okay,
end based
okay,
on
that-
last, I'm going losing my mind, based on last week's resolution of sending it to public hearing.
All right.
But you prepared the middle paragraph,
Okay, right, that's why I was confused, because I
okay?
didn't send you 3
I
paragraphs.
got nervous for a second.
All right, is there anyone else?
All right, hold on.
Yes,
Just,
I have a general question.
hold on, all right, I'll get to you first, Valerie.
Now, I will raise this, I wanted to point this out. You currently are providing pre-K education, correct?
Yes.
To the district. Your regional plan doesn't even reference that. Your regional plan refers to K-12 throughout. Obviously, this has not been an issue thus far. But I'm just noting that because I was listening today to all the discussion about pre-K, pre-K, pre-K. The regional plan, obviously, because pre-K education didn't exist back in the 60s. So I just will point that out. I don't think I don't think you have a problem by putting pre-K to 5 or K to 5. I think it effectively is the same thing, but I just note that as an observation from your current plan, just simply refers to K to 5.
Can I ask a question?
Hold on, I'm sorry, Valerie?
The thing about this regional document has always driven me crazy for the 500 years I've been on this board, because we have violated this so often. Because, for instance, we're not more than 9 members on the Board of Ed, you know? I mean, there's very specific things. I can't reference the place right now, but I believe we were always supposed to have had an assistant superintendent, and we have never done that. And then when you read the language here, talk about broad. The actual referendum language on page, I think it's 12, it's hard to read, 12. Is that what was presented to the voters in 1966, 67?
In 1966, 67, nothing was presented to the voters in terms of consolidating. What happened in the town of Bridgewater in 2007?
No, the question is,
No.
in the original,
When we were
what did they
first-
vote on originally in 67?
Because if you
Oh, I
read
don't,
this,
I don't.
if you
Honestly, I
read
was.
the referendum
I was in
language
second grade.
on page 12,
Oh, it's right in there, Valerie,
it
it's on
is
page 12.
very general, and yet we're told now we can't amend
Yeah.
something that's in a more less general
But
fashion.
what you adopted,
Yeah.
and as the Supreme Court has now told us, you adopted this plan. That's what you were adopting. The question, much like your resolution for the bond, you have a question, but what you effectively adopted is a plan that was reviewed and approved by the State Board of Education. And you've approved this. Now, what happened in 2009 is that you issued a bond to do exactly, well, very similar to what you're looking at now. And that was challenged, and the Supreme Court said, no, that, we consider that, and this was for the first time as a rule, that's a fundamental change to your plan. And so the one thing we do know is that if you try to pass this bond again without changing this plan, you're going to be unsuccessful. We know that because it's happened before, they've been told that. So what you have to do, if you wish to take this action, is modify or amend this regional plan.
Agreed,
in such a way
agreed.
that
There's
allows you
no
to do
doubt
it.
about that. It's whether we're allowed to have general power, or if we have to constrict ourselves and throw in the word consolidation, which then.
You could put single, you could put an elementary school that's K-5. I mean, there's
Can we
nothing
say,
magic about
can we
consolidation.
throw in language that would be reconfigure or consolidate? I mean, because otherwise, hands are tied. We've got to do this thing again, you know, pending results. We're all going to be positive. But that's why we were all fighting for the more general, because even in the case of a successful referendum, soon as this is passed by the voters, and if miracles happen, it could, then technically, we close all 3 elementary schools the very next day.
Well,
And bring everyone from Burnham to Washington Primary. Because that's what could be done instead of an obviously intelligent, slow transfer when the new school is built. In other words, the broader the question, the more flexibility for the board and the superintendent. And I'm worried if we say consolidation, then we're slamming doors shut.
And what you need to do, and again, there's no specific guidance, all right? There's no declaratory judgment in terms of what we're doing, is the Supreme Court noted that the recommendations of the study group, that you have to do it in such a way that the individual towns that have voted to join the regional district would have an opportunity to vote on a change of an existing plan that is not incidental regardless of the nature of the change. We conclude that the construction of a type of school that was not contemplated under the original plan, and then they refer, i.e. a consolidated school, because that was the issue that was back in 2007, as district from a traditional hometown school is not within the powers granted. That's their conclusion. And they basically say that it has to be essentially of a reasonable vote. You have to at least inform the voters such that they would understand the type of school that we're talking about. Now, you certainly can put in, because you can have in your original plan some kind of flexibility. You talked about the transition from the middle school that actually changed. So you could put something in there. The concern was not putting anything in there, and simply just referring to elementary in general.
Michelle, hold on. Michelle?
I agree that we should have the language saying that we were planning to consolidate the schools together because we want to be clear and open with the voters. But what I'm wondering is if there can be language, because I'm thinking about the very, very real issue we have right now. For example, next year, with 4 students registered at Burnham, let's say.
Would you want to put transition language in?
Well, because otherwise, even if the parents said, yes, please send those students to Roxbury, now we have a 1-5, not a K-5 in one town, and we're not in compliance with
Well,
that
you
plan.
will be
So there's no
eliminating
flexibility.
any proposal that you have, from what I understand what the board wants to do, again, if the board doesn't want to do that, let them know otherwise, is that you're eliminating references to K-5 in hometowns. That one thing is coming out. And you are, from what I understand, wanting to put in a single school, a single one elementary school, K-5. If you want to put in, I think it'd be perfectly appropriate, if you want to put in language allowing for transitional changes between existing buildings, et cetera, that is perfectly appropriate. In fact, the original plan talked about initially housing middle school in one elementary school until another building is done. Because the plans can anticipate, at least particularly the initial plans, the idea of transition taking place. If you have, but to get to Valerie's point, if you say a single school, I don't see anyone, the State Board of Education, can interpret that as having to close all the schools immediately and send the kids to tents because you have the school bill. I think there's the,
Oh, that's not what I meant.
No, right, but I just want to
What I meant
clarify,
is
because I don't think they're going
this
to come in and
plan.
make a 10-4A claim.
We're looking at 3 years of maybe 4 kids in a particular classroom. That's what I'm thinking. It's
Right, okay.
voluntary on our part, but we have the power. And that would not be fair to the 3-member towns if it was so specific. I kind of like the idea of, our plan that we filed says consolidation, correct?
I don't know what you filed.
In June, the one you referenced.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh.
well, obviously, any action you take here, if you change the question, I would recommend you file a new report with the commissioner and town clerks with the new question you change.
But the fact is, we've already said consolidation in the plan that was filed.
But you can file.
But we are now being more general. Aren't we still covered
No,
because
we
our plan
suggested-
says consolidation? Or are we totally, then dissonant?
Hold on, I'm sorry. The suggested language, Valerie, is a pre-K to 5 consolidated elementary school. That's.
I know that.
And that's only assuming, that's my assumption of what you want to do. If you want to do something else, that's fine.
My point is, Jim, is that we have a filing saying that consolidation, but we keep our question more open. Can we do that? Because the state sees consolidation.
No, you have to refile. If you approve a different question, my recommendation is to make sure that you completely comply with the requirements of 1047C. And those requirements are file a report with the commissioner and the clerks. The report includes the specific questions for the town meeting that you, I sketched it right out. I was,
All right, but in any event, we have-
and you have to have copies available so people come here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
All right.
Right, we'll still be
Alan,
sued.
I'm sorry, Alan?
Here it is.
All along, ever since this summer, you've been repeatedly reading this motion that we made, which was specifically to have a referendum to build a pre-K-5 elementary school. And we wanted to be specific about that. We could have asked a vague and flexible referendum question ages ago. And in fact, I was advocating for that. I think other board members were too. So as we wouldn't have to spend all the money we spent to solidify and specify as much as we did about this building project in the last 4 months. So now that we have a very specific, solid building project, it is frustrating me that we want to not mention it in our referendum question. I think it goes hand in hand. If we wanted flexibility, we had it. We decided we didn't want flexibility. We wanted something very definite to bring to the voters. And therefore, I think at this juncture to consider other options, that is naturally a whole other referendum. If we're going to start talking about K2 through 5, we might as well have tried that first because it was cheaper, but we didn't. So we're here now, we get this done, and then we can have another referendum if we have another plan. I think that if we really want to bond a consolidated school, we need to get permission from the voters in the form of the proper wording in this question here. As far as flexibility, you know, we've had flexibility in the past, from what I understand. There was a time when 5th grade was up in Chappaqua. There was a time when we have, and not in recent history, we have had kids en masse move back and forth between towns due to extremely small or extremely large class sizes. So I think that kind of flexibility already exists, but the concern is that all of a sudden now we want to start a whole new project. Let's do that next. The other thing is we're not going to get off easy by leaving the language out, because we didn't fulfill the requirements of 1047C in submitting a report to the clerks in advance of this district meeting that we had tonight. So we have to have another district meeting regardless, a public hearing, I'm sorry, regardless.
Except that we've heard that we've got stamped copies that they were received, so.
They were?
Peter?
Fred, I just had a question. We hired an attorney to write a document that we need to go to referendum. What in the name of God are we doing? Changing it. This is what we paid this guy to do. To write it, you either agree with it or you don't. If we don't agree with it, then somebody put a motion on the floor to change it. But we authorized the attorney. That's why we had this guy here. I mean, I don't understand why we're belaboring something that we hired somebody and paid him to write, because this is what they do for a living, and we don't. So he must know something about referenduming and et cetera, et cetera. So I don't understand why we're massaging this whole issue.
Greg?
One question, Gary. If we pass this referendum as you have drafted that little paragraph,
Let me pull it back up so I have it in front of me.
that the regional district plan be amended by deleting the language.
Right, quotation and replacing the language.
And replacing with language
pre-K.
pre-K-5 and deleting the language in proposed plan, lower elementary grades remain.
Right.
Yeah, okay, so if we were to adopt this, obviously, and you just said that it's not a problem that we do not start with a consolidated elementary school the minute this is adopted, because we've also approved theoretically a referendum to build it, and it's got to be built. So the question is, if we had to move, since we no longer would have the requirement of keeping a K-5 program in each town, would we be able to move them within the plan without putting any language in there about flexibility?
Don't know for certain because that has been moved on. I'm just telling you as honest as I can. However, to your point, there would be no restriction within the document of insisting that you have K-5 schools. You would have purged your regional plan of references to K-5 or hometown schools. You would be putting out specifically that your goal, that what you're doing, is to have a consolidated school. So I think a fair argument can be made, to go to your question specifically, is that you would have additional flexibility to deal with transition from where you are. But can I say that with 1,000% certainty? No, because this is an area of law that's in flux.
All right, well, in that case, then I'm going to move that we adopt this resolution, resolved that the officers of the Board of Education and the superintendent are authorized and directed to cause a district meeting to be called for the purpose of conducting the public hearing in the Chappaq Valley Middle High School, 159 South Street, Washington, Connecticut, on Thursday, March 13, 2014, at 7 p.m. with respect to the following recommendation. The board, whose recommendation is hereby approved, that the Regional School District 12 plan as approved by the State Board of Education on May 11, 1967, be amended by deleting the language, quote, elementary grades K through 5 to remain in their present hometown schools, comma, close quote, which appears on page 2 of the plan, and replacing with the language, quote, a pre-K to 5 consolidated elementary school, semicolon, close quote, and deleting the language, quote, in the proposed plan, comma, the lower elementary grades, comma, K through 5, comma, will remain in their respective hometown schools, close quote, from page 5 of the plan. Further resolved that the members of the Board of Education hold a meeting at Chappaq Valley Middle High School, 159 South Street in Washington, Connecticut, on Thursday, March 13, 2014, following the aforesaid public hearing, to schedule a referendum vote on the amendment to be discussed at the public hearing.
Second, and I have a question.
All right, hold on, it's been moved and seconded. Now,
Question, so this means that the referendum will be scheduled April,
Possibly 22nd or the 29th,
depending on what happens to the meeting.
depending on what
so
happens.
instead of April 8th, it's the 22nd or the 29th. I just want to make sure the board realizes that everything's been pushed
Right, the only
back.
restriction again is the 30 days. Sorry.
And then more importantly, short-term important, is I want to make sure that we're going to have a quorum of the board here to vote on this on that Thursday. It's not a Monday, it's a Thursday. I will not be here. And I just want to make sure that board members know how important it is so we can keep the timeline rolling after the public hearing.
Well, I guess that's a relevant question. Is there anyone who else who knows that they will not be here for that? All right, is there any Thursday?
Thursday.
We'll get the sunny side from this coming. Is there anything else? Any other comment?
Oh, yes, we're talking about the language of the motion here?
Yes, it's been moved and
Yes,
seconded.
I am all for specificity for the voters, clarity, because as I said in the previous meetings, this board has not necessarily engendered trust and having vagueness, especially with that kind of flexibility and what may happen. I make a motion to amend the wording to include in paragraph 2, in line 5, K-5 consolidated elementary school constructed on the Chappaq campus, semicolon, close quote, and deleting the language, blah, blah, blah.
So I'm following you, just so you would add simply on the Chappaq campus after the consolidated elementary school.
Constructed on the Chappaq
Right,
campus.
close quote.
All right, there's a motion.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. There's no discussion. All
Wait,
those-
hold on, a point of order. Is it true that there's no discussion on amended?
No, you can debate motions to amend, but the debate has to be confined to the amendment.
Okay.
All right.
Um, All right, we've finally been worth your.
Thank you.
salary.
Thank you, Alan.
Nice.
All right.
It's been a couple of years journey, but I'm glad there.
All right, apologize for that then. Is there anyone who wants to be heard on the motion to amend? Alan?
I think this is a great idea. We are being as specific as possible. I don't see what would be gained in keeping a secret as to where we're going to put this building. Seeing as we're planning on doing this, if we were to put it anywhere else, it would be an entirely different referendum anyway, because it would we'd have to buy land. So,
Well, it'd be a different referendum on the bond,
On the
not
bond,
necessarily
right.
on the amendment.
that's
Right.
fine. So I would definitely, having seconded this, clearly I would vote in favor of this, because we want people to know what we're doing.
Anyone else? Alan?
On the amendment, I'm really tired of thinking, of this thinking that we're trying to hide things, that they're paranoid, that we want to keep things closed in. This is a public meeting, we have everything on the website, we have cameras. Some of us just want to have a little more flexibility. Obviously, consolidation is the word when you associate $40 million. It's fine, I don't care if that word is here, I don't care if we're saying the Chippewa campus, but I don't like the inference that we're all running around trying to keep things secret. We're not, I'm not.
Okay. Greg?
I personally don't think it needs to specify the Chippewa campus. A lot of things could happen. Someone could donate the land immediately next door to the Chippewa campus or add a piece to the campus. We could not ever be able to pass a referendum in order to spend the money. People consistently vote that down, in which case we have to put the school somewhere, and there's only one place you could put it at that point with no money to buy land and no money to build. Put it in Washington Primary School, and that's exactly where you'd stick it until we had some better consensus. But at least you have options, which you have none if you're required to put it on the campus. Of course, the other thing you do is you move it into this building, but I'm not sure that would be the best thing to do it is. And so I think you have to have options, and I think that by restricting it that way, that's exactly the kind of straitjacket we're in before. And I resent the insinuation that people don't trust the Region 12 Board of Education. This board is attempting to do its job to educate the children in this district. That's what it's attempting to do. It's not attempting to have agendas or do anything else. We're facing a nightmare situation. We're facing a situation in which our schools are disappearing.
No, it isn't, come on.
No, this is right in with this amendment. And we're facing a very difficult situation in which we have to do something because the education of our children is at risk. This isn't about the money, although the money is on an unsustainable path. This is about how to educate kids when you got a school with 26 kids in it. And so we've got to do something, and I think the idea that we're somehow trying to advance some kind of agenda is just getting to be tiresome. Because I didn't come on this board to have a consolidated school. What became obvious to me is there was no other choice because the demographics forced us in that direction. And that's the thing. I didn't want it. I didn't want to go there, but we have no choice. It's the only option available to us. And I think to put us in that straitjacket when we might not get the funding approved puts us in a tough position. I think we should not add that language. I'd vote no.
Michael?
I'm going to speak just to the amendment, and I think that we don't have to look at motivations or why. We just have to look at the fact that we're trying to provide clarity and information to the voters. I don't know how anyone could argue with that. We're also giving them specific information that's no different than what we really want. I don't know how anyone could argue with that either.
Valerie?
The argument is the way things are prefaced, that we're trying to hide things, and that we have to be specific because we've always been hiding things. I'm speaking to the motion, but I just want everyone to remember, Washington is going to close its elementary school too, with great harm, to its commercial center. We're sacrificing a lot here too. It's not all about the other two towns. Washington Primary, which some of us really have great affection for, is going to be closed as well.
Kelly, I'm sorry.
We have promised the voters the opportunity to vote on a consolidated school, which we've talked for a long time about putting on a Chippewa campus, and that is indeed where the site has been located by the architects who worked on this very expensive set of renderings and architectural details. So let's give people what we've told people we would give them, an opportunity to vote specifically on a consolidated school on a campus.
All right, thank you, Susan.
Yeah, if I may just address my own prefacing the lack of trust on the part of the board. We were addressing the issue of dropping demographics through the long-range planning process. The K235 got the most votes and it was ignored. There was a drumbeat of consolidation, and members of Bridgewater were trying to be very clear, and we were at the table talking about what may work, you know, in terms of a region. Let's think regionally. Consolidation just did not go away, and there were 16 of the 19 Bridgewater members who resigned because they felt they weren't being listened to, and the only members left were the Board of Ed reps from Bridgewater here tonight, sticking it out. So Bridgewater, and I will not speak for everyone in the town, but I will certainly speak for my preferencing the lack of trust out there. Certainly there has been a sense that what Bridgewater as a town would want and what is important to Bridgewater had been denied through the long-range plan process, and that's what brought us here. You heard it tonight, you heard it. Closing a school will be culturally devastating. You know, I'm sure Washington and Roxbury have their own thoughts about their own schools. Burnham means so very much to the town of Bridgewater. That's why there is so much pushback. So when I talk about a lack of trust, it stems from a history, and I'm not talking recent, I'm talking long-standing history of not being heard and concerns not being validated.
All right, is there anything else?
Yes.
Peter?
I move the question.
There's no discussion on the motion to move the question, is there?
No, but frankly, I just also point out that, remember, the debate on the motion to amend is solely on the amendment, not the entire question. So,
We
The
know.
motion
it is
to
venting.
move the question, is there a second?
We're voting on the amendment.
No. The motion is to move the question. On the amendment. On the amendment, yes. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
To move the question? Tony? All right, all those in favor of moving the question on the motion to amend, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
I'm abstaining.
I'm sorry, what?
No,
You-
I was opposing.
Michelle is opposed,
Opposing the moving of the question.
and Valerie is
Oh, to
abstaining.
move? Oh, let's.
All
I'm
right,
for
the
moving.
motion passes. The question, the motion to amend is to add the language, 1, 2, 3, 4, on the fifth line, consolidated elementary school, and to add the language
Constructed on the ship.
constructed on the Chappaqua campus.
Oh, wait a minute, why aren't we saying Washington, Connecticut in interest of full disclosure?
The motion was to say constructed on the Chappaqua campus. All those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. All those opposed, raise your hand.
I'm going to vote to amend.
Any abstentions, raise your hand. Are you abstaining, Greg, or opposed?
No, I'm still opposed. I'm waiting for the.
All right, the motion to amend passes. So now we have the amended motion. Is there any further discussion on the amended motion? All those,
Wait.
I'm sorry, I looked, I didn't see any hands. Yes, it's there.
Well, you gotta give people a chance, Jim, you know?
Greg, it's almost 11 o'clock. It is, go ahead, Greg, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's a motion I want to make, and I can't remember the exact form of the motion, but I believe it's to take this off the agenda permanently. There's a motion to do that, and I forget what it's called.
Postpone indefinitely?
Postpone indefinitely. I move we postpone this motion indefinitely.
For what purpose?
Motion.
And by the way, just for clarification,
The motion I made.
a motion to postpone indefinitely means the item is put off for the remainder of the session. So if you were.
Tonight.
It basically defeats, it effectively defeats the motion for the meeting. It certainly can be taken up at another meeting, but it's redundant in the session.
All right, hold on, there's a motion on the floor, is there a second? All right, there's no second. We're back to the amended motion. Is there any further discussion? Greg?
I think now that we've amended it, I'm having problems with my own motion. I made the motion, but I'm not happy with the amended motion because I think it puts us in a very silly and difficult position. And that difficult position is that we'll now have the possibility that we might pass the change to the regional plan, not pass the budget, so that people can take pot shots at it in several different ways. And the net effect is we may end up in a situation where we have an obligation to construct a school, no money to construct the school, and now where are we? And now we're back to another referendum and a series of referendums, and we're going to spend the entire summer into the fall. If we had kept that off there, people would have to think twice before they voted against any one part of that, because they might get stuck in a situation they don't want, which is with a change to the regional plan and their kid going to Washington primary school. And now you're forced into a situation where you can have the worst of all possible worlds, which is a change to the plan and no money to build a school. And that would put us in a terrible situation. And what would we do? We would remain in the present situation.
Chair, point of order,
So you
we
see,
already
no.
made the amendment, we made the amendment.
That's why I wanted to.
He's speaking to the motion. You're out of line. Is there anything further?
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
Is there anything further on the amended motion, which is before us? Tony?
Can I ask a question about what Greg said?
Yes.
I'd like to ask Gary, if it really happened that the public decided we should build a school, but then would not vote in the money to do it, I mean, are we held liable to do
Well,
it?
you've got four options, right?
Gary, I'm sorry, if you could try to be specific.
Okay.
If this motion passes,
Right, and the bond doesn't.
Yes.
Right. Well, then you have a regional plan that calls for you to construct a consolidated school. You have to go back to the drawing board. You have to, the regional plan now is calling for you to construct a school on, one elementary school on this campus. It doesn't have to be the same school you looked at. It doesn't have to
But
include.
you have no money to do it.
Well, you have to keep it, you have to ask for money. You have to.
You go to ask for money and they turn it down, now what?
Well, then, if you get to the point where you attempt to do that with the regional plan, you can't do it, then frankly, it seems to me, you would have to go back and look at how you're going to amend your regional plan. Because you have a regional plan that calls for something that you've decided you can't do. So as the governing board, I would imagine you look at it and say, we can't do what the regional plan calls for, we've got to go back to the voters and tell them you can't do this, and we've got to amend the plan elsewhere.
No, but my point only is, legally, we wouldn't be we're not responsible to do something we can get no money for.
No, I don't think the State Board of Education is going to come in under 10-4A and say somehow you have to expend this money. They understand that you have a regional plan which gives you an outline of what you're going to do. Then you have the reality of actually doing it. Those are two separate things. You have four scenarios that can come out of this vote.
is there anything else on the amended motion? Kelly?
Just a reminder that several of us on this board recommended, in order to avoid that kind of dilemma, that we not put the cart before the horse, and that we vote on amending the regional plan separately, and before we put any bond or building or anything else out for approval. If we decide to do it this way, let's just move ahead and get it done.
Okay, anything else on the amended motion?
Yes.
Now,
Counsel, how sure are you?
Which one?
Well, you. The one that got us into this pickle.
he did not, that's uncalled for.
Oh, yes, it's
Go ahead,
definitely
your
called
question.
for. How sure are you that we will be challenge-free?
What do you
Oh,
mean,
don't
If we have a
ask
specific.
I can't.
He can never give that.
People can
I
always.
know you can't.
People can
100%.
always bring a challenge. If the question is not challenge-free, but successfully weathering the challenge. Those are two different questions. If you have a plan that specifically calls for consolidated school on Sheffield Valley, and you then have a bond which approves to do precisely that, I think you're in pretty good grounds. I don't think that is going, of all the things you have to worry about, that's the one I wouldn't worry about.
All right, all right.
Anything further on the amended motion?
Just-
Yes, I'm sorry, Emily.
Just for clarification, so if the amendment to the regional list of plans passes, but we don't get any money, the worst case scenario is we have to keep asking, and come up with a new plan.
Yes, we have to, right, a new project.
Yeah, you have an obligation to attempt to implement your regional plan, which the voters have approved.
And if you did it 10 times and they all failed, you'd have to go back and seek to amend the regional plan.
It's a policy decision for the board to make.
Is there anything else on the amended motion, right? There's an amended motion for us. All those in favor of the amended motion, raise your hand. You have to vote? All right, all those opposed, raise your hand. You opposed to your own amended motion? Okay. And any abstain, raise your hand. All right, the motion, you got that? Yes. The motion passes. So we have a public meeting, March 13th, 2014, 7 o'clock p.m. to consider this question to be followed by the Board of Ed meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye. Thank you.